Massive partner in brief of ongoing progress work on the shutdown of Lagos Infra
Bring all the traffic into this direction.
We are going to work to ensure that better the road will.
Welcome to another episode of the program Infrastructure Weekly. I am your regular host on the program, Ajibola Omuchikwa. On this week's episode of the program, we'll as usual take you around some of the federal government's projects in the power, works and housing sector, and also to take another look at the infrastructure agenda of the Buhari administration as encapsulated in the next level document, which his campaign for second term in office was hinged on.
Coming together of opportunities, and this is what
Infrastructure is the backbone of development, which explains the Buhari government's effort at bridging the facility gap. Infrastructure Weekly is a television package designed to bring you latest information on hundreds of development projects going on in various sectors all over the nation.
there is no state in Nigeria today where you will not see our contractors busy at work.
Power generation, rural electrification, road rehabilitations, national housing scheme, construction of roads and rail lines across the country, you name it.
We are now able to produce 7,000 megawatt of power. That is no longer debatable.
Infrastructure Weekly is Nigerians working together for a better Nigeria. So be better informed to take better informed decisions. Watch Infrastructure Weekly, showing on Channels Television Thursdays 2:30 p.m., NTA Network Wednesdays 5 p.m., and QoTV News Fridays at 8 p.m. Infrastructure Weekly, making development known.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has been speaking on what the Buhari administration has done over the first 4 years of the first term and what it intends to do, especially as it affects infrastructure development and ease of doing business in the country. The Vice President, who was the guest lecturer at the 50th Convocation Lecture of the University of Lagos, said the federal government is putting all in place to ensure the nation's infrastructure deficit is bridged significantly, thereby reducing unemployment and youth restiveness through such projects and related activities.
The Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Yemi Osinbajo, says the next level government of President Muhammadu Buhari is one that will extensively develop the nation's infrastructure, which will help grow and diversify the economy of the country. Nigeria as a nation sets a great vision to be among the top 20 economies in the world by 2020, and it is believed that infrastructural development is critical to the achievement of this vision. This, according to the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the 50th Convocation Ceremony Lecture of the University of Lagos, will be the major focus of the next level government. He says there is great need to create an environment for production and investment, adding that it is extremely important in the diversification of the economy. He also spoke on the plans of the federal government to decongest the Lagos ports by developing what he described as hard and soft infrastructure across the country.
We believe that creating an environment for productive investment, for productivity, and investment is extremely important. And that environment is one which is both in terms of hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure. Soft infrastructure covers the whole gamut of the regulatory environment for business. Hard infrastructure is where we focus on economically strategic roads, rail, power, ports across the country. Roads and rails linking important commercial centers are prioritized. As of today, in 2 budget cycles, we have spent an aggregate of 2.7 trillion naira on capital, which is the highest ever in the history of the country. We have recently commissioned, and I'm sure many would have followed that, the Lagos-Abeokuta-Ibadan end of the new standard gauge Lagos-Kano Railway. That rail originates from the Apapa port, which means that very soon cargo will be moving from the ports by rail out to the hinterland and of course out all the way to the north. This will significantly ameliorate the congestion that we're experiencing in the port.
He further spoke on the works of the federal government on road infrastructure across the country, while giving insights into the plans in place to improve the country's road facility.
Expanding the facilities of the ports was always going to be a very important issue. Our port has the capacity for 34 million metric tons of cargo, but today it does 86 million metric tons of cargo, several times higher than its capacity. And so we're currently dredging the Warri port as part of the effort to reduce the congestion at the Lagos port. In Lagos, we're also working on the private sector-led port, the Lekki port, and also the Badagry port has attracted significant foreign capital and interest. In Abuja, after almost 15 years, we've completed and commissioned the Abuja Light Rail project, starting from the airport to the city center. Similarly, we completed and commissioned the Abuja-Kaduna Railway. The Itakpe-Warri Railway has also been completed, linking the iron ore deposits to the Warri port. Here in the southwest of Nigeria, work is going on, as many would know, on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Lagos-Ota-Abeokuta Expressway, the Ikorodu-Shagamu Road, and the Ogbomoso-Ilorin Road. The contract for the Lagos Expressway, the Lagos-Badagry Expressway, was awarded about 2 months ago, and work should begin very shortly.
For the power sector, he said private sector investment and involvement will be key to the actualization of the aims and objectives as contained in the power sector development agenda of the current administration.
On power, we've moved generation from 4,000 to 8,100 megawatts of power. But the effect of this increase in generation has not translated significantly to better service to the consumer. Now, this is mainly due to two factors. The first is transmission challenges. The second is distribution. Over 2,000 megawatts of power is not today being taken up by the discos for distribution to consumers, largely because of the problems they experience in collection of tariffs. So what we've done is that we've embarked now on a major metering initiative, the Metering Assets Program, which involves private metering asset providers. So we're no longer relying on the discos to meter. We've now aggregated a group of meter providers who will provide meters as their own business. And in addition, the federal government has in the past 18 months taken on the deficiencies in transmission through the TCN and the Niger Delta Power Holding Company. We're completing transmission projects all over the country. But the more important strategy is to decentralize power production. So we've adopted an off-grid program, which means that we're encouraging private investors to collaborate with government to build IPPs, those are independent power plants, and supply power to willing buyers.
He said the Buhari administration will continue working on infrastructure development and ensure all are complete to take Nigeria to the next level.
The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, has been speaking on moves to reposition and improve the nation's infrastructure. The minister who spoke about the role of integrity of the nation's current leadership play in the repositioning and improvement of its infrastructure to an audience of the Harvard University in the United States of America, and he therefore said the nation has a long way to go, but it's not where it was in 2015 when the Buhari administration came on board. He added that nothing is wrong with Nigeria and that the nation's current challenges are opportunities for Nigerians as they are for members of the global community with whom we must be related. He said what Nigeria gets will be determined by the choices we make as a nation and how we make them. If you're just joining us, the program is Infrastructure Weekly. You can get in touch with us on any of the social media handles showing on your screen. I'll be back with more on the program after this timeout. Stay tuned.
Dear lottery operator, you've done a remarkable job so far getting into a business that has been highly criticized for many years. You've done well to uphold your credibility and boost confidence in the business. Kudos to you. This is just to remind you of the rules of the game as prescribed by the National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Gaming is not for persons under 18. Underage gaming is prohibited. Report illegal operators to the Commission and also always remember the regulatory job of the Commission. Whatever your category, lotteries, sport betting, promos, scratch cards, games, it is the duty of the Commission to protect lottery players and the operators as well as promote transparency and accountability. Licensees are also expected to play their part, which includes remittances to the National Lottery Trust Fund. For more information, please go to natlotteryregcom.gov.ng. The National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Lottery the right way.
If you're just joining us, the program is still Infrastructure Weekly, where we x-ray the infrastructure development agenda of the Muhammadu Buhari administration. You can get in touch with us on Facebook, that's Infrastructure Weekly, and on Twitter, Infra_Weekly. Now moving on. The federal government says its commitment to infrastructure development is not shaken. The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, disclosed this while speaking at the management retreat of the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing in Owerri, the Imo State capital. The minister said the federal government is taking infrastructure development as seriously as it has ever been due to its game-changing capacity at all levels of national development.
This is the top management retreat of the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, a quarterly event organized for directors, chief executive officers of parastatals, agencies and heads of units of the ministry to create a platform where the top management officers within the sectors interact, share experience, knowledge, skills and review policies with a view to achieving the mandate of the ministry. Speaking to newsmen during the event, the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, said one of the things the ministry is trying to promote in the retreat is to make everybody sign up to good governance.
One of the things we are trying to promote on this retreat is for all of us to sign up to improve the quality of good governance. So we've had retreats about team building and how various departments and sectors of one ministry must work as a team for efficiency.
Speaking further, the Minister and the Executive Chairman, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, James Momo, said the retreat will help the ministry to implement some of the plans to improve electricity supply and develop the nation's infrastructure.
So this time around we're focusing on good governance and it is a very appropriate time. We reviewed our Ember month preparation for the dry weather and the end of year movement across the roads, power supply. And we are now preparing for a new season. The rains are coming. It will bring new challenges to power. It will bring new challenges to our roads. Ordinarily, as a people, we just go into these weather changes without necessary preparation. But we're doing something different this time, preparing for the rainy season, knowing where floods are likely to impact, knowing what we can do to make the impact less severe on citizens, knowing that rainstorms will affect electric installations, trees might fall, and working with discos, for example, to start pre-rainy season maintenance, cutting, trimming of trees, working with state governments to intensify their efforts now on drainage management, silting, so that water flow is more better control, working with our contractors to see if we have enough resources to close up those places where they have done either earthworks, stone base, and so that they can asphalt and close up so that we don't lose that part to the rainy season when it comes, and then they can continue when the weather is more clear. We're generally preparing to improve the quality of service and deliver on the mandate of our principal, the President.
For example, what is good governance with respect to power, with respect to energy supply to customers? It is creating this opportunity for customers to have the meters they need, which we are working on very well at NERC. Also making sure that customers get light and of course providing electricity for all. So that's part of good governance, and making sure that people pay the right price and ensuring that new industries or privatization yield results for those who want to invest in the energy sector in Nigeria. For example, we have talked about all of the challenges that we face in making sure we get power to people's home at affordable price, very reliable power. And at the same time, we are saying to ourselves, what do we do to increase the capacity? Not only the power capacity, but the human skill set that is needed to ensure that the engineers, the technicians, our students are all engaged and also pay the right price for doing their work. So at the same time, they are rewarded. The reward has been taken is also discussed as part of good governance. And of course, making sure that, as you have had in the discussion today, that we make sure that people live within their means. And that is one way of correcting and controlling corruption. That's part of good governance.
The ministry, according to the minister, will work through platforms presented by the quarterly meeting to take infrastructure development to the next level.
Now moving on to the power sector. The Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors has said it is in support of the call by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, for a transitional review of the power sector to give exclusive right to distribution companies as against what currently obtains in the sector. This came to a light in Abuja at a stakeholders meeting between both organizations who are in two legs of the power value chain. Let's take a listen.
The Transitional Electricity Market Order gives exclusive electricity distribution power to DISCOs, but there had been fighting between DISCOs and other stakeholders in the electricity chain over claims that the DISCOs should give other operators their due shares of proceeds from electricity distribution. As a result, the Transmission Company of Nigeria had presented a request to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to end the era of monopoly of electricity distribution by distribution companies. Managing Director of the Transmission Company, Usman Mohammed, says that the nullification of the Transitional Electricity Market Order had become necessary to enable TCN collect revenue on the vending of power from the 330-132 kV line.
The ruling documents are subsidiary legislation guiding or regulating the Nigerian electricity supply industry. However, the Power Sector Reform Act, being a legislation enacted by the National Assembly and approved by the President, operate as a spurious legislation to all ruling documents. Any other regulation directive made by the Commission that is inconsistent with the provision of the Act shall, to the extent of that inconsistency, be declared null and void. That is the truth.
The request by TCN is to allow transmission and electricity generating companies the opportunity to serve some prime customers.
DISCOs do not offer any form of service, either operational maintenance, to these customers. DISCOs are not technically empowered to operate the 330 and 132 kV networks levels. These customers do not impose any cost on the DISCOs. They don't impose any cost on them at all. And because only GENCOs bears, these are only the cost of the 132 kV customers. This is only the cost that they bear. They only have costs that are related to generation of electricity, and they're also having costs that are related to transmission of electricity and auxiliary services and administration of the market, which include the services that are provided by NAC, MO, and the rest of them, like MBED. They don't have any cost related to DISCOs.
However, speaking under the aegis of the Association of Nigeria Electricity Distributors, DISCOs say next declaration of the Transition Electricity Market Order, null and void, would widen the shortfall in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, put at about 1.5 trillion naira.
Assuming NEC do indeed convert all the 132 customers to become eligible customers, somebody will give you that order to disconnect if they're not paying, either MBED or whoever want to assume that role. So you can't argue, especially when you sign the contract and enter a contract, to say now you want to change your contract by changing who you interface with. this cannot be something you can seek validly legally and by law. If you want, essentially, if you want to change this, you have to change not only the term, you have to change so many things. And of course, it comes to the point of discussion that my colleagues have eloquently argued for in the market.
It is clear that generation companies, that is, Gencos, the successor, generating companies, and also independent power plants may only sell their power to the trading licensee. That is MBET, DISCOs, and eligible customers. So TCN has no role in holding customers, as defined at all. So for TCN to be agitating for some of these things, and you have to appreciate the fact that once that is done, definitely it's the role of NEC to actually define how to move. Hence, the interim rules and the supplementary order declared by NEC were in order, and they are still, very okay to guide the market towards where we have.
We have made a proper submission to the Commission, detailing about 6 or 7 pages that actually, highlights all of this. And one other thing that I think we need to make clear is the fact that the separation, operational separation of the 132 and the 330 system does not preclude us in terms of the homogeneity of the entire electricity value chain from the generation all the way down to the customers.
The Generating Companies and Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, backs TCN, insists that a change of the order had become expedient.
We think that it's in a very good direction for the market that is developing. The rules, regulations may not be permitting as of now. There might be hitches somewhere, might be creating some compulsions to distribution company to align. But what market needs? Market needs to develop and progress. Market needs industries to flourish across the different regions in the country.
So clearly, the purpose of regulation and the law that provides now the opportunity for the regulator to review and make regulations and amend regulations as we go along is indeed to ensure that we can move steadily to a point where we are able to address most of the very critical challenges that our industry faces in a way that enables us to move quickly, and I say very quickly, to a point where we have an electricity market that is transparent, that is efficient, that provides affordable quality electricity to all consumers.
Throwing his weight behind TCN, a representative of a power generation company says the sector will be proud of the outcome if they consider a further look at the provision of the Transitional Electricity Market Order.
If we see as of now the tariff structure, somewhere about 35, 36, somewhere we see about 45, somewhere we see about 60. So varied tariff structure, if we look from industry perspective, if we look from employment perspective, the industry would not like to go the areas where there is a high tariff. But this initiative, or thought process, I would rather say that, a long way to go might be, but a thought process of TCN to see that, okay, let's leverage out, let's make changes in the procedures where 132 kV customers, depending upon wherever they do, wherever they want, if they contract with eligible supplier, it will be good for them, it will be good for the market.
Also, the President's Manufacturers Association of Nigeria adds that the time has come for the country to change the law and embrace progress.
I'm sure participants here are aware that in the current circumstance, our nation is also contemplating a bigger open market through the African Free Trade Agreement. And what that means is that if our industry remains uncompetitive, if we are unable to continue to produce the goods and services that we consume in this country at prices which are portable, which are competitive, then we are going to end up being swamped by imports of all sides. If our industry cannot supply stable electricity, good quality industry, consistently, over time, believe me, the investors we are looking for will invest in our neighborhood and our market will be swamped.
Stakeholders in the power sector agree that there is an opportunity in the transmission company's request as they express hope towards improvements and availability in power supply.
And that's it on this week's episode of the program. Join us again for another interesting episode of the program, same time and same station. Until then, continue to pay your tax and protect our public infrastructure. I am Ajibola Umuchekwa. Bye for now.
We are going to work to ensure that the fact that